Missing digital activist Ndiang'ui Kinyagia suddenly, very suddenly, reappeared after missing for days. He literally fell out of the sky from nowhere and reappeared. Eish! Of course, this is very good news. The mother was so overjoyed she could not hold back her joy. Yeah, I'm guessing that she had thought the worst. But here was her son once again. I too was very relieved because I had thought the worst. I had assumed these games the government was playing, saying they don't know where he was. I was suspecting it was because of the worst. So it's a great relief that the young man is still alive and is back. However, there are too many disturbing question marks. Let us start with the timing. Oh, the timing. Just when it was the deadline the court had given for the boy to be produced, just when pressure was mounting, including international pressure, and indeed President Ruto is currently in the UK, and you know how those UK mzungus are with human rights. When all that pressure was piling up, right on time, perfect timing, Ndiang'ui Kinyagia suddenly reappears. That timing was too close to call. And so already there's suspicion. The timing, too perfect, too neat, way too convenient to fit into the narrative we're being given. Yeah, which is, he was in hiding somewhere, and now he had finally decided to come out, but he feared for his safety, but he was ready to present himself in court as long as his safety was guaranteed. That is what his lawyer told us. Now, it is super fascinating. Shortly after this pronouncement by his lawyer came out, the family denied that he had been found. Yeah, which of course means that Ndiang'ui contacted only one family member. And that family member is not like he's very close to his immediate family. Yeah, a relative of sorts. Now, there are many things which are off about this narrative, especially coming from a person who has been through a very similar experience. You know what I do on this channel, analyzing politics, in the past has gotten me into trouble. I've had to go into hiding. And therefore, I can tell you for a fact that when you're in hiding, there are things which cannot happen. For example, you're still within the borders of Kenya and you're in hiding. And you're very much aware that the people who are after you are the government. Now, who can guarantee your security and safety within the borders of Kenya in such a situation? Nobody. And besides, why do you want to come out of hiding? Very conveniently to save the government who are on the spot to produce you. Why would you want to do that? It doesn't make any sense. But the biggest clue by far to show us very clearly that there is much more to this than meets the eye was visible to everybody who saw even a photograph of Ndiang'ui when he appeared in court. He had his hair shaved, and not even shaved properly. The kind of shaving that one would get maybe in a prison somewhere, yeah, or maybe while being held somewhere. Now you can see in front of your screens right now a comparison of his photograph before he was taken and the way he appears when he reappeared a few hours ago. Now Lynn Ngugi, who is a very popular Kenyan YouTuber, has pointed out this on her X page. Yeah, and I totally agree. There is something off about that. Suggesting, you know what it suggests? It suggests that actually the most likely thing that happened here is that the state had this young man. And the problem was they did not know how to get out of the jam they had put themselves into. Yeah, because if they released him, they would be confessing that they had him all along. And yet they had denied very strongly in a court of law under oath that they had no idea where he was. Okay, that's the jam they got themselves into. And somebody may have come up with this idea, as a way of getting out of it. Yeah, get the man to contact a relative and then make it look like he was in hiding. Indeed, it was very clear in the courtroom that Ndiang'ui looked very shaken. Okay? And therefore this was very easy to pull off, because you threaten him and you tell him, we're going to do 1, 2, 3. If you want to get out of this alive, you must cooperate. Keep your mouth shut and tell the world that you are in hiding at such and such a place. Something like that. You know what this really tells us about this government and the security boys? Do you know what it tells us? Very clearly. I will tell you in a minute. First of all, I just want to check in on you and ask, have you tried Lemify, which is an app for transferring money? Yeah, our partners on this channel. They usually sponsor quite a number of videos on this channel, including this one. And you know, there are many advantages of using Lemify. Yeah, they have very good rates. The service is very easy to use. And then if you use my code Kumekucha, which you can see on your screens right now, you will be able to get a cashback. The details of that are in front of your screen. And that's not all. There is a draw. And all you have to do is use the service enough to be entered into this draw to win fantastic prizes. Therefore, I would highly recommend that you try Lemify today. Give them a try. Yeah. And in doing so, you will also be supporting our channel. Right. What this latest development tells us is that this is a government which has run out of ideas. This is a government which is continually being cornered all over the place. And I'm sure you know what that means. When somebody is in 6s and 7s, being cornered every other day, it can only mean one thing: that the end of this regime is very close. Closer than most Kenyans can imagine. Let me explain. You know, in life, you cannot be lukewarm. You cannot be 50-50. In anything you do, in order to do it successfully, you cannot be in the middle. You have to be clearly on one side. You cannot decide to be lukewarm. And you're not hot, you're not cold. It will not work in this life. And the situation we have in Kenya today, which is obvious to everybody, is that over 80% of the Kenyan people do not want the Ruto regime. They don't want it. In fact, there's anger towards this regime. And therefore what that means is that the only way Ruto can continue ruling Kenya is by force, against the will of the vast majority of Kenyans. And by the way, that is possible. And the only way it is possible is by this regime going to the extreme, being a total, ruthless, brutal dictatorship. Okay? That's the only way it can work. However, there's a problem. We have the 2010 Constitution. And you know, the world has become a village. The whole world is watching. And therefore this government finds itself in that delicate position where they have to be in the middle. Continue pretending that they're leaning towards democracy and the Constitution, yeah, while at the same time ensuring that they remain in power. And the only way to do that is by being very brutal, is by being dictatorial. Okay? And that kind of position just makes life impossible, and it becomes very difficult to govern. And this latest development over the digital activist, Ndiang'ui Kinyagia, is an excellent example, because his family went to court demanding that he be produced, either dead or alive, and therefore the government was forced into that very uncomfortable position, against their will, to produce the youngster. If it was a proper dictatorship, not held back by any constitution or by any resistance from the people, then it would have been very easy for the government to say, we don't know where this young man is, end of story. But they couldn't do that. I'm sure you understand where I'm going with this one. They're in the middle. Yes, in the middle, but of course at a place where you must call this regime a dictatorship. But then it cannot be a proper dictatorship because there are obstacles to them being that. Okay? Of course, the right thing to do, the only patriotic thing to do, is for this government to totally embrace the Constitution, whatever the consequences to itself. But then I'm sure we all know they will not take that option. For the very simple reason, the minute they do that, they are gone. They will not be able to survive that. And therefore they're in that very difficult position between a rock and a very, very hard place. Hey, how long can they survive in that position? How long? Now, I want to share something a bit sensitive with you. Please move closer. I can't talk in such a loud voice. Yesterday, I received a flood of emails. Those emails came from some of you who were finding it impossible to access my latest highly sensitive video. What had happened is that they had already purchased the video and I sent it to them, but then it could not open. And when I looked into it, I found out that actually it was true. The video mysteriously could not open. Now, bila kizungu mingi, what had happened here is that somebody with very powerful connections and somebody who is very smart had maneuvered things so that this video was no longer accessible. They had paid for it, I had sent it to them. Previously, it had been sent to other people and they had been able to access it, but then suddenly, boom, it could not be accessed. Which immediately raises the question, why would somebody not want people to access the information? Of course it's sensitive, but why would somebody go to such great lengths to stop access to this particular sensitive video? Not the others, just this one. Why? Okay, I have a very good idea of who exactly was involved in this. But please let us just focus on the question, why? I think the answer is obvious. The information in this particular video, this one video, they are very nervous about people having access to that information. And therefore I'm advising those of you who ordered this special report, if you have difficulties in accessing it, please use the email address you see on your screens right now. You missed this at gmail.com. Shoot me a quick email and I'll be able to assist you. Okay? Now I know some of you may have run into that problem and you're just wondering, what has Chris done? I've done nothing. Yeah, so in case you're one of those, just shoot me a quick email. Nitakusort. Now meanwhile I also know that I've made some of you very curious. And I never ever like to leave people hanging. And therefore, I will give an opportunity only for this particular special report that is being sabotaged. I will give an opportunity to anybody who wants to take a look at it, to get it, but for a very short time, 24 hours maximum. Now you can see details on your screens right now. For only $9.99, I'll send you only this one report. Not any of the previous sensitive special reports, just this one. Okay? You know, I told people this one is sensitive, and some people did not believe me. Well, now here's the evidence. Okay? Hey? Anyway, if you're interested, you know what to do. Strictly only the next 24 hours. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.